this is my review of Cells at Work. Okay, so it's the first episode of the second season. If you guys don't know, I reviewed Cells at Work season 1 a while back. And season 2 is basically more of the same. It's new. It's got some new characters, but overall is still about cells doing their jobs within the human body. So, and yeah, this episode actually showcases a new type of affliction that the cells have to deal with, again, as part of a regular daily basis. And so it starts off with our familiar friend, Red Blood Cell. She's going about her business, doing her work, trying to deliver her oxygen and food supplies, sometimes in some pretty cramped spaces, as in the case with one cell. And as she's going about her route, she actually runs into another white blood cell, who asks where the main blood cell 1126 is. And Red Blood Cell answers that she doesn't know where he is, but presumes that he's most likely on a route trying to deal with a germ infestation or something. And indeed, that's what he's doing, as we find out at the start of the episode. But as he's going through, she talks to the other white blood cell, and the other white blood cell remarks that he just wants 1126 to try and take it a little bit easier sometimes, since he does have it was a bit of a workaholic. It should be noted that's a big part and flaw of his character, that 1126, the main blood cell of the main continuity of Cells at Work, he kind of works hard at his job to a fault and never really takes time to relax. And basically his buddy wants to help him relax by taking him out for some tea and other things that will enable him to relax and finally stop and smell the roses. And Red Blood Cell just remarks that sounds kind of cool and a little bit fun, but remarks that it's possible that White Blood Cell is already taking care of himself, considering she knows him pretty well at this point, and knows that that's likely the kind of guy he is, that even when he's not working, he does try to take time to actually relax and smell the roses, since he does indeed hang out with her sometimes, which implies that he does indeed just like taking it slow sometimes. And we know that for a fact, because at one point he just decided to drop his entire workday so that he could help Red Blood Cell get through the entire circulatory system. That was an entire episode they did, but and White Blood Cell's friend is moved to tears by the fact that a Red Blood Cell actually cares that much about them, and initially Red Blood Cell doesn't understand what's going on until the other White Blood Cell explains it to him, and sure enough explains to her that she's just happy that she cares so much, and Red Blood Cell just responds that she hopes they find him soon, because he should be able to relax, and hopes that whatever he's doing, he is indeed relaxing and trying to take it easy. Unfortunately, that's not happening at all, because as it turns out, he's targeting a bacterium. It's never stated what the bacterium is in the episode, but it's cuter than other bacterium that normally invade the body, and it even gloats about that at the start of the episode, claiming that it'll be able to take over the body because they'll be too off-put by its cuteness to actually want to attack it. So, and unfortunately that didn't happen, and 1126 murders it without any sort of remorse, and points out that he's mainly going to do his job, and that it doesn't matter what kind of germ invades the body, he's going to do it. As he's working on cleaning up, he actually hears a noise and gets a little bit jumpy and pulls out his knife, only to discover a platelet called Backwards Cap, nicknamed that because she wears her cap backwards. And Backwards Cap is a little bit startled at first, and points out that she was in the way, and at which point White Blood Cell immediately apologizes, pointing out that it was his fault for not cleaning up, and promises and apologizes for scaring her, basically. And also as they're talking, White Blood Cell notes that this platelet is very similar to Red Blood Cell, and that they have very unique, very odd adamant similarities. the main thing that white blood cell notices aside from that is that Black Backwards Cap is carrying a huge tub of coagulation factors around, and even dropped one and tried to asked white blood cell to toss it to her so she can catch it back in the basket, which didn't work, and she falls on her butt. But and white blood cell understandably is a little bit confused and asks Backwards Cap why she's working so hard, and Backwards Cap responds that she kind of is a bit weaker, twice as weak as the other platelets in her group, and basically their commander, who isn't the main, I'll explain it. It's a different person, but basically the cell yells at them for not being able to mobilize and do what they're supposed to do for standard blood clots, and that's mainly Backwards Cap who's holding them up. So Backwards Cap decided to take it upon herself to train herself and become stronger, so that she can actually hold her own when doing a standard blood clot, so that the rest of the group doesn't have to rely on them as much. And 1126, after hearing her story, decides to give her a bit of a pep talk, pointing out that she admires how much she's working, and that he has no doubt that she'll actually be able to get her shot, as it were, and that one day her training will pay off, and she will be able to hold her own. And with that, he escorts her out of the neutrophil tract that he's been running around and hunting germs. At which point they run into red blood cell, and he introduces the two of them. Unfortunately, they don't get much time for a happy reunion, because right at that moment, all of the arteries just kind of rupture where they are immediately and without any sort of warning, and they're all just kind of blown away. And 1126 holds on to Backwards Cap, and as red blood cell shouts moral support at him as she floats away. At which point he runs into his friend, who was also floating, and they quickly realize the problem. As it turns out, the person that these cells are all inside hit their head, which is where the titular bump comes in. It caused the swelling on the outside of the head, and they're in the head area. So it's because of that, the blood has nowhere to go, and they're just kind of floating in what's basically a zero gravity zone. Basically, that's how they decide to describe it. It's very similar to them not having gravity at all, and it's about the same as you would expect from that. But they're trying to contemplate what they're supposed to do, the platelet Backwards Cap realizes that she needs to help and quickly mobilizes the rest of her units and meets up with the rest of the platelets so that they can actually seal up the clot and stop it. Meanwhile, the neutrophils move in to do what they do best, which, considering it's a closed wound, is nothing. So yeah, they do an entire bit about how they're all going to get all pumped up to do the best that they can, and that they're going to do what they do best. But since it's a closed wound and there's no germs coming through, all they can really do is help with the coagulation and help stop the bleeding, which involves them getting stuck in the fibrin and just getting stuck to the wall. So that's where white blood cell and his friends stay for the rest of the episode. They just kind of get stuck to a building and that's it. But as they're mobilizing and trying to patch up the wound, they notice that several of the cells are actually flowing out of a tunnel into the rest of the body, and they quickly realize the problem. They don't have enough coagulation factors to actually close up the wound that they're currently in. So the blood is just kind of pooling into the wounds pulling out of the wounds without any real way for them to stop it. At which point, the platelets commander actually shows up. Megakaryocyte, a cell who is, for all intents and purposes, the platelets mom. In actual real world biology, the megakaryocyte is basically designed to produce platelets, which is how, and that they're usually the biggest cell in the bone marrow, and that they're usually the biggest cell in the body, some of the biggest cells in the body, and they produce the platelets, which are designed to stop blood clotting. So basically, the way they decided to do that is they've decided to design her as a tough but loving mom, which makes quite a bit of sense. And she's very tough on them and orders them to basically does what she did in the flashback, that she basically orders them to do better and is disappointed that they're doing this poorly at their job. And in 1126 even notice this, points out to himself that this probably isn't the best idea to actually be doing, pointing out specifically to him, at least to himself, because the wind inside the wound is too loud for them to actually hear him, that Backwards Cap has a bit of a low self-esteem issue, as we've established, and in case in point is starting to get a little bit torn up and starts curling into a ball. But instead of lecturing them further, Mega Karyosite actually offers them a reward. She offers them a gold medal if they do their job, which pumps up the platelets and causes them to actually do what they need to do. They start pulling out the coagulation factors and doing the best they can, and proceed to form a blood clot, which notably is a primary blood clot, which is notably what Backwards Cap struggles with, but Backwards Cap actually finds a way to do an actual help by actually handing out coagulation factors rather than being part of the pyramid that the other platelets are trying to form. But as she's handing off the last coagulation factor to their leader, the lead platelet drops it down a pit. So and Backwards Cap jumps it after it in a moment of heroism. At which point the other platelets realize they need to band together to actually save her, and basically for all intents and purposes to form a human chain of human bungee cord and just jump in after her to grab her. And Mega Karyosite is kind of moved to tears at seeing how well they work together. And with that, they're able to actually retrieve Backwards Cap out of the pit and form it, and proceed to finish off the blood clot so that they can actually close the wound and begin repairs. And Mega Karyosite is all happy that they worked so hard. But initially seems like she's not going to give them any of them a medal, since none of them actually stood out among any of them, and they all kind of goofed up in one way or another. So instead, she gives them all gold medals, because why not? And everybody, and they're all happy and proud. And she even pulls aside Backwards Caps, pointing out that she's especially proud of her since she knows how hard she's been working to actually become a better platelet and actually better herself, knowing full well that Backwards Cap is not as strong as the other platelets, and that she's been working hard to make up for that. And she notes that her strength has actually paid off and pulls her into a hug. At which point 1126 remarks to himself that he's also proud of Backwards Cap, pointing out that she definitely worked hard and that she earned this victory. And then that sentiment is immediately ended when Backwards Cap, enamored by the fact that she now has a shiny gold medal, walks on his face. So yeah, that sentiment is completely destroyed, and he's notably a bit bent out of shape, and both his buddy his fellow white blood cell and red blood cell, who is being part of a different clot and is being hauled into place, they both pick up on the fact that he's upset, although he doesn't really discern why. So that basically overall, not only was this episode supposed to show to introduce us to another new character named Backwards Cap, who struggles a little bit in terms of helping with blood clots and other things in the body, which is primarily what the episodes of Cells of Work are. They are scientifically accurate with a touch of human drama and that kind of stuff. But basically just introduces us explains how bumps in a head work. How when you hit your head, that's what happens when that happens. And it also introduces us to Mega Karyosite, who is basically the platelet mom, and Backwards Cap, who had a bit of an inferiority complex because she knows she's not as strong as the other platelets. And this episode was about her overcoming that. So yeah, that's my review of Cells at Work. What you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!